Welcome to Victory News. It's Thursday, October the 31st, 2024. I'm Greg Stevens, along with Mike Garofalo, Fiora Hernandez, and Tim Fox. Here are a few of the stories that we're watching for you right now. As the election approaches, all eyes are on the race for president. But the balance of power is really in the hands of the so-called down-ballot races. We'll talk about it with Wall Builders President Tim Barton. And there's an evil agenda to steal, kill, and destroy the destiny of America's children. How can we fight back? And what can parents do? We'll talk with RNC Youth Advisory Chair, co-chair, Brylan Hollyhand about this and more. But first, let's go to Fiora Hernandez with our headlines. Fiora.
Thank you, Greg. Early voting numbers coming out of North Carolina appear to be somewhat concerning for Democrats, starting with an 18% shift in the GOP's favor on day one compared to 2020. According to Breitbart News, numbers out of the key swing states show Republican votes have outnumbered Democrats 1,148,634 to 1,106,358. Additionally, independents have also outpaced Democrats with a 1,113,426 ballots cast. According to Michael Prusser from Decision Desk HQ, North Carolina's total votes cast of 3.37 million represents 62% of the expected electorate and has the state on pace to see more than 4.2 million early votes cast, just shy of the 4.63 million in 2020. According to the Real Clear Politics average of polls, Donald Trump is leading Kamala Harris in the state by an average of 1 percentage point. If it's up to one evangelical group, a Christian voter turnout for this election could be historic. According to the Christian Post, the Faith and Freedom Coalition announced this week it had knocked on a record 8 million doors in battleground states that will likely determine the outcome of the election. In a statement to the Post, coalition founder Ralph Reed said, "We are seeing unprecedented enthusiasm and intensity among our volunteers and the voters of faith with whom they are interacting. These voters are coming, and they are coming in historic numbers." Reed says they hope to turn out 3 to 4 million additional voters this year compared to 2020, along with completing 10 million get out the vote calls. Their volunteers are also sending out 24 million texts, along with 30 million voter guides to 100,000 churches. Mike?
Fiora, Kamala Harris held a campaign rally on Wednesday in Raleigh, North Carolina. Despite the fact that she has been vice president for the past almost 4 years, she promised to shift the direction of the country into a new one, committing herself to finding a common ground, showing respect, and working together to get things done.
And here is my pledge to you. I pledge to seek common ground and common sense solutions to make your life better. I am not looking to score political points. I am looking to make progress. I pledge to listen to experts, to those who will be impacted by the decisions I make, and to people who disagree with me.
Harris' comments come a little more than a week after she told some students who shouted "Jesus is Lord" at her campaign event at the University of Wisconsin that they were at the wrong rally. And at a campaign event on Wednesday in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Donald Trump reminded people that just a few short months ago, Kamala Harris was considered by many to be the worst vice president ever. The Republican presidential nominee then said this:
"We can declare once and for all that we are done with their hatred. We are done with their hysteria. We are done with their hoaxing, lying, cheating, scheming, plundering, and stealing. And we're not going to let them divide and destroy America any longer." And that goes for Barack Hussein Obama, too.
Now, later in the day in Wisconsin, the former president drove around in a garbage truck wearing a safety vest to bring attention to Joe Biden's remark on Tuesday calling Trump supporters garbage. Today, Donald Trump will be campaigning in Albuquerque, Las Vegas, and Phoenix. Greg.
Well, all eyes are on the presidential election as early voting continues across the nation. But in many states, U.S. congressional races are on the ballot, which are also critically impactful to the future of our nation. Contributing correspondent Paul Petit takes a closer look at some of those key U.S. Senate and House representative races and what it will mean to the balance of power.
No tax on overtime.
A pathway to citizenship.
take other countries' jobs.
Restore reproductive freedoms.
A lot of promises have been made on the campaign trail. Regardless of who wins the presidency, little will get done without it going through the legislature.
There are three branches of government, and according to the founding fathers, the most powerful, the most significant branch of government is the legislative branch, because that's where the laws are made.
That's why which party controls the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives is so crucial to this election.
Well, there are two sides to this. When you look at the importance of the United States Senate and the United States House of Representatives having good, strong, constitutional conservative leadership, one part is that President Trump becomes president. You want them to be able to support him, the agenda that will get this country back on track. When you look at what if it were Kamala Harris to be the president? Well, you want to have a legislative branch of constitutional conservatives that are a bulwark against the continuation of these very far left Marxist policies.
Here's a breakdown of the House and Senate ahead of the election. Republicans control the House, and the Democrats control the Senate, a divided Congress. The chances of either party taking control of both chambers of Congress are slim, but any tight race could tip the scales.
Now, the Senate actually looks like it's a more guaranteed flip to go Republican away from the Democrats, who have had the Senate now for several years.
That's because Republicans only need to flip 2 seats in the Senate to gain majority. With Democratic Senator Joe Manchin retiring, there's a good chance a Republican will take his place, meaning the GOP really needs to win just 1 Senate seat. Colonel West says there's a very good chance of that happening.
One of the key indicators I look at is in a couple of these battleground states, being in Pennsylvania with Senator Bob Casey and Wisconsin with Senator Tammy Baldwin, they're starting to run ads which align themselves with Donald Trump.
Another key Senate race is in Montana, where 3-term Democratic incumbent Jon Tester is being highly tested by Republican challenger and former Navy SEAL Tim Sheehy, who's up by 8 points.
Montanans ultimately are common sense people. They can take care of themselves. They want a secure border, safe streets, cheap gas, cops are good, criminals are bad, boys are boys, girls are girls. And those are the things they believe, and those are the things they want their government to fight for.
But Republicans must also retain Senate seats to gain majority. Some of the tight races include Republican Rick Scott in Florida and Ted Cruz in Texas. Cruz is fighting to get reelected against Democratic challenger Colin Allred, where the open border issue remains front and center.
He has voted for open borders repeatedly. He says if you believe border security is important, Colin Allred calls you a racist. He calls the border wall that racist border wall. He has pledged to personally tear down, quote, that racist border wall.
In the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, all 435 seats are up for re-election. There are currently 3 vacant seats. Right now, there are many contentious races in California and New York, where abortion is a major campaign issue.
This is a very important election. They all are. But this is one that has, I think, for those who are enthusiastic, those who are excited, those who are concerned about this election, they're going to crawl over broken glass, as we say, to make sure that they go out and vote.
Whether it's abortion, the economy, or the border, all of it will be greatly impacted by which party controls the 2 chambers of Congress and who's in the White House. And all of it will take this 2024 high-stakes election to a whole new level.
These are very, very close races. It's something that, as Christians, we need to be engaged in the process. We need to be voting anyway, but especially when it comes to the House and the Senate.
For Victory News, I'm Paul Petit.
Let's talk with president of WallBuilders.com, co-author of the American Story, Victory News contributor Tim Barton. Tim, welcome to Victory News.
Thanks, Greg. Good to be with you.
Now, once again, we're privileged that you will be a key part of our Victory Channel election night coverage. And I know your team's keenly focused on those down ballot races, especially in the House and the Senate. What's at stake in this congressional election this year?
Well, there's a lot going on. As recognized, whoever the president is, they have a limited amount of power based on what happens with the House and the Senate. From the House is where spending originates. From the Senate is where you have judicial confirmations. And so, for example, if President Trump is elected, but Republicans don't have the House, then he's not going to be able to cut some of the funding, some of the spending to rein in some of the federal government like he wants to. And the same way as he's trying to appoint different personnel, and he's going to have approximately 9,000 to 10,000 of these scheduled appointments.
if he doesn't have control of the Senate, then he's going to have a hard time getting some of his people confirmed through the Senate. So it really does make a difference that the president has the House and the Senate to carry out a lot of what the plan is.
And many of those races are very, very, very close. And your vote does matter. Tim, take a look at the cover of the New York Post today. Trump takes out the trash. Yesterday, the 45th president showed up in a garbage truck in response to Joe Biden's garbage comment about conservative supporters. Then he wore that safety vest on the Trump rally last night, explaining why.
And I said, no way. I got 25,000 people standing outside. I got all these people here. There's no way I'm wearing it on stage. They said, oh, okay, sir. I said, get me my jacket. But if you did, you know, it actually makes you look thinner. I said, ooh. And they got me. I said, I want to wear it on stage.
All right, if that works, I'm getting one myself. Tim, everything the Democrats throw at this man, he turns around on them. So did Biden's comment and Trump's response, did that just win it last night?
You know, it certainly didn't help. I think there's a lot of factors for those that are maybe not rabid anti-Donald Trump people that maybe are more honest people in the middle, and they're not sure. Maybe they don't really like Donald Trump. They don't like his personality, but they're not really a fan of what we've had the last 4 years. They're not sure. I think seeing things like a sitting president call the people that might not support his candidacy or his party's candidate, or really just oppose some of him, calling them garbage is not a winning tactic and strategy. It's something that we've seen, unfortunately, many times from some on the left, whether they would call people that were Republicans, those that cling to their God and their guns are deplorable, all these things. It certainly doesn't help. And then there's a level of irony when they're saying that we need to unify the country, and they're demonizing people that disagree with them. They're calling Donald Trump Hitler, which of course he's not. They're calling him a fascist, which of course he's not. And then to call his supporters garbage really is telling. It certainly is not helpful, but it's also not necessarily surprising given that they have shown this to be their pretty consistent feeling of Republicans.
When I heard this story, I asked the producer, that can't be true, but here it is. Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Greenwald, she posted a spreadsheet to the website with passwords to the state's Dominion voting machine. This is the same person who tried to remove Trump from the ballot earlier this year. Are we looking at an honest oops here, Tim, or is this a failure to perform the duties of that office professionally?
Well, I think probably both. I don't think this was nefarious. I don't think they were trying to help people find codes to be able to use it to try to get into systems. But two things can be true at once. You can make an honest mistake, but your honest mistake can show that somebody's not competent enough for that position. And so whether it is her or the person that worked for her that posted that Excel spreadsheet online, somebody should lose their job over this level of incompetence. And unfortunately, we have not seen a lot of accountability from inside a lot of political circles, especially not on the Democrat side. And so I don't think this was intentional necessarily, but certainly it shows that you don't have people that are responsible. It would be the equivalent of if I tried to do surgery on somebody. I might make an honest mistake, but all it would show is I'm not qualified to do surgery.
Yeah, you shouldn't be doing
and therefore shouldn't have that position. That's what we've seen from a lot of elected officials. Right. They really shouldn't have those positions.
Tim, thank you for the good work you do at wallbuilders.com and for spending time with us today. We'll definitely see you next week. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
Mike?
Greg, 4 counties in Pennsylvania, Monroe, York, Lancaster, and Cambria are investigating cases of potential voter application and mail-in ballot fraud. In Monroe County, District Attorney Mike Mancuso reported 30 irregular applications from a third-party organization, including one from a deceased individual and others believed to be fraudulent. In York County, another third-party organization sent in thousands of pages of election-related material, including completed voter registration forms, as well as mail-in ballot applications. In Lancaster County, prosecutors say they discovered a scheme involving roughly 2,500 voter applications, about 60% of which were deemed fraudulent. As Secretary of the Commonwealth, Al Schmidt oversees elections in the Keystone State.
We've been in touch with Lancaster County several times in the last couple of days to provide some guidance for what to do when it became apparent that they had received some number of voter registration or mail-in ballot applications that appeared to be fraudulent.
Cambria County also reported rejecting 21 fraudulent voter applications linked to a group that held a registration event. Fewer.
Mike, with Arizona's Senate race intensifying, the most recent polls show Republican Kari Lake holding a narrow lead over her Democrat challenger, Representative Ruben Gallego. According to Just the News, Donald Trump's endorsement has helped fire up Kari Lake's base, with polls showing Lake leading slightly with 45.2% and her opponent Gallego at 44.5%. About 6% of voters are still undecided. Lake's team claims that their lead shows strong momentum and proof of deep support in Arizona. Recent polls show Donald Trump leading Kamala Harris by as much as 8 percentage points in Arizona. Tim?
A United Nations report revealed female athletes lost nearly 900 medals to trans-identifying opponents. The report, titled Violence Against Women and Girls Sports, found that due to biological men taking part in events, more than 600 females didn't medal in 400 competitions across 29 sports. Reem Assalem, UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women and Girls, presented the report earlier this month at the UN General Assembly and said the reintrusion into female sports had caused higher instances of harassment, assault, and voyeurism, also known as peeping toms, not only in competitions but locker rooms and bathrooms. She blasted allowing biological men to take part in women's sports as limiting females' ability to participate in safety, dignity, and fairness. Mike?
Tim, the evil agenda to steal, kill, and destroy the destiny of our children is being exposed, with courageous doctors and truth tellers stepping forward despite the backlash. But shaping the identity of our children starts at home, and parents have a responsibility to teach them that their identity is in Christ alone. Here's Victory News Chief Correspondent Fior Hernandez with more.
At some point, our daughter is going to grow up and she's going to look back at this time and say, you know, Dad, like, what did you do about it, right? To see what these children are going through, right? And seeing the end result of it. But to know that I was in a position to change something, then I could never have forgiven myself. There were children who were in imminent danger of being harmed by these misguided, corrupted doctors and this corrupted pseudoscience that they euphemistically call gender-affirming care.
In 2022, Dr. Ethan Heim exposed Texas Children's Hospital for allegedly continuing to provide the so-called gender-affirming care. He's now charged with violating HIPAA laws and faces up to 10 years in prison. Meanwhile, the lack of studies or evidence to support what gender ideology activists keep imposing is overwhelming.
They can be children as young as 5 to 10 years of age declaring this is who I am and this is who I want to be for the rest of my life, and the doctors at the Children's Hospital saying, okay, that's good enough for us.
My body, it's menopause. It's going through menopause at 19.
The youngest patient I've done vaginoplasty on is age 16.
We don't have the kind of studies that we would like.
So why would a National Institutes of Health-backed doctor hide the data from a decades-long study on gender-based interventions and treatments? Meet Dr. Joanna Olson Kennedy.
You know, there's astounding rates of suicide attempts among trans youth. So about 50% of trans youth have attempted suicide by the time they're age 20.
That's what Dr. Olson assured almost 10 years ago, but just last week, a New York Times report quoted Olson admitting the multi-million-dollar government-funded study did not yield the results they expected or perhaps hoped for. The findings are being withheld because Olson says, quote, it may fuel the kind of political attacks that have led the bans on the youth gender treatments in more than 20 states. But we, the body of Christ, know the truth.
And I think because he is Satan, it means he respects pronouns.
For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians 6:12. Kylie, I have to ask you, they mock people that actually say there is a demon behind this agenda. You're the youngest one out of all of us. Is it funny to you?
No, it's a reality. Right. We have the spirit world and we have this natural world. And everything that happens in the spirit world actually has dictation and implications of what we experience here in the natural. And the crazy crazy thing is these same people who are mocking, they're probably opening their home to a lot of spiritual activity through their entertainment.
We love casting spells.
So that's the devil, and the girl is the Antichrist.
Come to your father, Damien.
Oh, you're a girl.
I live with my mummy and my other mummy.
The Cocomelon Show is so insanely addictive, it's being compared to nicotine and causing developmental issues amongst the kids who can't stop watching.
Your wife waters flowers. I want to kill her.
Those are Taylor Swift's lyrics, by the way, about an affair.
You know what is called entertainment? Because it enters. It enters. There is a portal right there. That's why, like, even through movies, cartoons, music, even right now, you see concerts. They don't hide anymore. No. I don't follow secular music, but I have seen famous artists literally doing witchcraft on the platform. Who on earth is taking these children?
When your child, who barely knows how to, do anything, is a child speaking about anxiety, speaking about depression. Again, the identity issue. What doors are being opened? We all have to take responsibility for that.
If we see it and it is against the word of God, we have to dismiss it and get it out of our homes and away from our children.
You have not voted already on November 5th. Support government leaders who will agree with you to protect the innocence and identity of your children. Our next guest created the Truth Gazette and helps lead the GOP Youth Advisory Council. He's also the author of One Generation Away, Why Now is the Time to Restore American Freedom. Brylan Hollyhand, welcome back to Victory News.
Thanks for having me. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Brylan, you have a major presence on social media, and you're a young man who grew up bombarded by the kind of entertainment influence we just heard about in that story, yet your identity in Christ seems very clear. What do you remember about your parents' efforts to safeguard your identity as a child?
Yeah, well, we attack as Republicans this indoctrination that's going on in the classrooms a lot, as we should, and we should be pushing back against that. I've seen it firsthand, but I think the major difference that we need to be pointing out there is that before children can be indoctrinated in the classrooms, we need to start instilling Christian conservative morals and values in the living room before these teachers that are actually activists have the chance to attack us. This is something that results back to nuclear families, results back to having strong parents and strong families. America needs to go back to that.
Yeah, Brylan, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre and the administration are working overtime to try to take back these words.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
Just to clarify, he was not calling Trump supporters garbage, which is why he this is why he wanted to make sure that we put out a statement that clarified what he meant and what he was trying to say.
So now House Oversight Chair James Comer, House GOP Conference Chair Elise Stefanik are calling out the administration for releasing an incorrect transcript of the remarks that may be in violation of the Presidential Records Act of 1978. Is the White House, Brylan, do you think, making things worse by trying to hide that comment rather than just coming out and apologizing for it?
Much worse. I mean, they can clarify whatever they want, but the American people heard Joe Biden loud and clear on an HD video. This was not something that was blurry or grainy or something that, his words could have been misconstrued. This is what he says. And I think this shows a clear difference, in the closing arguments of both candidates in the race. Trump finished his campaign yesterday talking with everyday Americans, being a man of the people you saw riding around in a garbage truck. The other side called 250 million Americans garbage. I genuinely didn't think that he could break the internet any more than he did at McDonald's and on Rogan, but he managed to do that by putting on orange vest yesterday and talking to everyday Americans. There's a clear difference there.
Yep. Now, Brylan, so power linemen in western North Carolina who have worked tirelessly to reestablish power to those devastated by Hurricane Helene have gone on strike. Here's one of those linemen.
So, sorry, Asheville, we're here for you, but at the same time, we're here for our families. So if we are not getting paid, we are not doing a single thing, we are not lifting a single hand. It has been 8 weeks. We have not gotten a single penny. Some of us are sleeping in our trucks.
So FEMA hasn't paid them in 2 months that they've been working. Many have come in from out of state, but the Biden-Harris administration sends hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars to Ukraine. Brylan, how can FEMA ignore this situation and those workers?
Oh, it's disgusting. FEMA has one job to help Americans. Obviously, we all know today's Halloween. Ronald Reagan's famous quote were the 5 scariest words in the English language are I'm from the government, I'm here to help. These people are trying to help, yet the government's stopping them. That's horrible. There needs to be an end to this. Donald Trump helped more Americans than when he did in his 2 visits to Georgia and North Carolina than FEMA has in 2 months. This is disgusting.
Yeah. So you recently joined with Turning Point USA to visit 8 campuses to talk to many, many, many young voters. What was your message to them?
Yeah, it was very simple. We called it the Get Off the Sidelines tour. Charlie Kirk and I partnered together. I did 8 campuses in 4 weeks. It was a lot of fun. And we got to talk to a lot of Americans and simply say, listen, there's hope out there. I know it looks like there's not a lot of hope, but I promise you there is, because I put my hope in Jesus Christ alone, not in a single DC bureaucrat. And that message will win this election on Tuesday. All
right, Brylan. Learn more about Brylan, his book, One Generation Away, and his perspective on issues of the day by visiting BrylanHollihan.com. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate y'all.
You bet. Tim.
Impressive young man, Mike. Now with the latest on Israel's war to defend itself, here's ILTV and Israel 365's Steve Leibowitz.
A ceasefire agreement in Lebanon could be close at hand. After speaking to U.S. envoy Amos Hochstein, the Lebanese prime minister said he hopes for a deal within hours or days. The IDF aimed at fuel depots that were located within Hezbollah's military compounds, belonging to the terror group's Unit 4400, which is tasked with delivering weapons from Iran to its proxies in Lebanon with fuel provided from Iran. Separately, the IDF targeted and eliminated Mustafa Shahadi, deputy commander of Hezbollah's Radwan forces in Nabatea. Iran says that it will deliver a definitive and painful response to Israel's recent airstrikes that knocked out much of the Islamic terror regime's air defense. According to CNN, Iran says its response will come before the U.S. presidential elections on October 5th. Steve Leibowitz for ILTV and Victory News.
Thank you. Now join us as we continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Greg?
Well, now until November the 6th, we invite you to join Pastor Terry Copeland Pearsons and others from Kenneth Copeland Ministries each morning for a 20-minute election prayer call. The prayer call times are at 6:15, 7:15, and 8:15 a.m. Central Time. Call, here's how you call. Call 605-313-5960 and use access code 871-527 and the pound sign. Join your faith with ours as we cover this nation in prayer at this very pivotal time. All the information is right there on your screen for you to be part of that. We encourage you to be part of that prayer. 877-281-6297. 877-281-6297 is where a licensed prayer minister is waiting right now to agree and to pray with you concerning anything and everything that's going on in your life. Don't be afraid of the threats and the things that are being said. You do your part. You vote. You tell other people to vote as well, and then you join us on those prayer calls and you pray every single day, every single week as we go on in this last week, in this last week as we go forward. Watch God work. Our thanks to Brylan Hollihan and Tim Barton, and especially you. Thanks for joining us. We're back at 5 Eastern, 4 Central with the Western Journal's Josh Manning and conservative commentator Jeff Crouere. Please join us as well. The world reports the problem. Victory Channel is the one that brings the answer. Whatever's born of God overcomes the world. That's you. This is the victory that's overcome the world, our faith. So stay in faith today. God bless you. I'll look for you this afternoon at 5 Eastern. Bye for now.